Welcome to another episode of What Else You Got with Mitch and Margot. I'm Mitch, she's Margot. What else you got?
Well, Mitch, I was driving home from work today thinking, I haven't talked to Mitch in a while. I wonder if he has anything interesting to talk about. Got anything?
I actually saw a really interesting video that had two lines in it that is kind of just mind-boggling a little bit. So, you know the saying "No one's coming to save you."
Yes.
It also means no one's coming to stop you.
Have you seen those videos where, um, a, somebody is sitting on their couch or sitting at their kitchen table eating dinner, and then they pause and they think, wait a second, I'm an adult. I can do whatever I want. So it's like the opposite of adulting. And so instead of sitting at your dinner table eating your dinner all by yourself, Um, the guy builds a blanket fort in the front room and puts his big giant screen TV on the floor and eats his bowl of cereal in his blanket fort while watching TV. Still adulting.
Yeah, it's just
So,
how much fun you have.
right? So, same kind of concept. If nobody's coming to save you, also, no one's coming to stop you. So, you can either eat your dinner at the table like an adult, or no one's going to stop you from eating it while you sit in the bathtub. You can do whatever
Yeah,
you want.
just because, at least for me, the first part, no one's coming to save you. It's one of those that why are you waiting around? Are you expecting the adult to come into the room and take care of the mess, or you're stuck on the side of the road? No one's come to save you. You got to figure out how to get out of it. It's just one of those that why are you waiting for someone to help you? And then uh, I really like the other part where no one's going to stop you. Yeah, you're on the side of the road. Does that mean you're going to go off roading, or does that mean you're going to find out how to get yourself back on the road? Or if you're, say, starting a business, are you waiting for someone to come do the business for you, or are you taking charge? You're running it, you're owning it, and because no one's coming to stop you, how far are you going to go?
Also, it gives you permission to be the hero or heroine of your own story. Okay, nobody's coming to save you. Save your freaking self. Be your own hero. Do it your own way. And by being your own hero, you get to choose the method by which you are saved.
Yeah, I really just when I saw him going, wow, that this simple perspective shift
Yep.
is enabling of
Yep.
things you can do, which really just comes down to what is it you are going to do.
Right. And in the mental health world, they often call it reframing. So even if we go back to my example of an adult sitting alone, eating dinner at their dinner table all alone, well, you could have the mindset of, I'm all alone, poor me, I'm all by myself. Or you could take the mindset of, I'm all by myself. I can eat in my underwear. I can eat cake for dinner. I can eat while I'm watching cartoon. You have the freedom to get to do whatever you want to do. So just
You can eat in the
reframe it.
bathtub.
Yes, reframe. Eat on your kayak out in the middle of the water. You can do it however you want to. You're an adult. You're alone. You get to make your own choices. Okay, so you get a flat on the side of the road. Yeah, you could claim, oh, woe is me. Nobody's coming to save me. Or you could say, screw it, I'm just going to go buy a new car. I mean, you've got choices. You don't have to sit in the sad one. You can get up and do something different, take a different action, or just go change the tire, or eat your bowl of cereal and then go for a bicycle ride. You get to the beautiful thing is you get to choose. You have choices.
So I'll ask you this question. Do you have a moment that you can think of where you were sitting around waiting for someone to save you and then you realized, oh, wait, I'm on my own?
Just about every day,
Oh,
except I'm not actually
okay.
sitting around thinking, is somebody going to come save me? I'm kind of at the point in my life of where I know it's me. If I want flowers, I need to go to the store and buy myself flowers. or use DoorDash, except I've never actually used DoorDash. It's a wonderful
There's
thing.
also
People
mail
build.
flowers.
Oh yeah, yeah. So, so yeah, it's up to me. I'm smart. I can figure it out. Whenever it feels overwhelming, um, I go with the mindset of what's the next step? What's the smallest step I can take toward this thing that is overwhelming? So instead of being overwhelmed by the overwhelm, I'm trying to just say, what's the next step? What's the next smallest action I can take to move me in the direction of the end goal?
Yeah, and it's really is just one of those that everyone thinks of just there's some people that think of I just need to make it to the next day, next 5 minutes, next hour, and then at the same time people are going, but how do I get to my goal that's 20 years down the road? And there's that gap that not a lot of people think of okay, I see where I want to go, but I can only take one step. But if you're looking at your feet, how do you know where you're going?
Well, and it's the same thing when you think of like an angle, or you hear pilots talk about it all the time. Um, you might right now at the corner point, you might feel like you're only making teeny tiny little incremental changes, but over a course of time, your trajectory moves you. So over time, you've achieved your goal, where if you had done nothing, you would have just stayed down at the straight line. And so whether you think in terms of linear or angular, every little step you take is getting you closer to your end goal. And I think we've spoken on a previous podcast about how when you're in the vehicle moving, you're not necessarily aware of your momentum because you are in the vehicle moving with the momentum. But if you were to step outside of that vehicle and look around, you would see how far you've come from your origination point toward your destination point.
Yeah, that actually brings up two thoughts. I'm always a two thought guy apparently. Um, because how thick is a piece of paper?
Very thin.
Very thin. So how many pieces of paper do you need to make it a mile?
Well, mile, I don't know, but you need 500 sheets for about 2 inches because a ream of paper is about, if I had to guess, 2 inches. So 500 sheets of paper is only, oh, do you mean stacked or do you mean end to end?
Stacked.
Yeah, so
Because end to
500
end's too
sheets.
easy.
Yeah, 500 sheets is only going to get you 2 inches. So,
Because when I was in college, I was a printer repair tech, and the amount of paper that we went through, I can't remember if it was a week, month, or a year, but it was some relatively small amount. We would have enough paper to stand it on end, so the thin side, where you're looking at it this way, stand it on end. It could go to from the bottom of the school campus to the top of the school campus and back down, which I think that was almost 2 miles, and that's how much paper you can go through on a smaller university campus. And I bring that up just because, yeah, you think a piece of paper, it's not worth standing on end and trying to see how far you can get, but when you when someone just a bunch of people are doing a single print here, two prints here, 4 pages there. Next thing you know, you've got 2 miles of paper
well,
without you
and to
trying.
your point of a person doing a single paper here and another person doing 4 pages here, that might feel like really slow progress, but then all of a sudden you've got somebody printing a 400-page book and then you jump ahead. And so when you're talking about your individual progress or group progress or anything, you might be plugging along at a small, minuscule rate, but then something might come along where you do an astronomical jump forward. And the same is true with progress toward any goal. It might feel really slow, and then you hit a point where all of a sudden you're propelled forward quite a bit. And so it can be a really fun ride. You just need to know that mo- some of the biggest changes, and there are whole books written on this topic, some of the biggest changes come from small daily tasks that seem really minimal, but they turn into big, huge changes and accomplishments.
Yeah, one of the other small things. So it's not my second thought, but it's still adjacent to the printing. One of the interesting statistics that was told to me from the guy who ran the entire print service across all of campus. So for a black and white page, it cost a student 4 cents to print, and increasing it to 5 cents would take it from a nonprofit status of being able to print to a for-profit because it's that big of a price difference, which is 1 penny can throw it thousands of dollars off.
Oh, absolutely. Because it's interesting that you bring up the topic of printers, because we were talking about printers at my day job today. And I know that it costs less than 3 cents per page to print a black and white copy from our current printer. And so then, if you were to go to a copy and print store and they're charging even just 5 cents a page, well, then they're making a profit and we're losing money. And then we were talking about, you and I were talking about measuring your goals. Made me also think about the printer conversation of there's more than one way to measure also, because if you have a toner ink cartridge thing that says it will produce 3,000 copies, well, unless you've got a counter, how do you know how many copies you're actually getting? Well, another way to measure that is how many reams of paper have you gone through in the same amount of time. So if it says it'll print 3,000 copies, and is that single sided or double sided, and you know a ream of paper is 500, then you can do the math. And so we can relate that to goal setting and goal progress by knowing that there's more than one way to measure progress toward a goal. And so sometimes if you can't see your progress, take a step out and think, okay, how else can I measure this progress? Or can I ask somebody else's input as to how does my progress look? Do you see any changes?
One of the things that I'm doing for one of my jobs right now is so key performance indicators, KPIs, that a lot of people go by. It really goes to what are you measuring by? And one thing I realized is the KPIs that is provided for me isn't granular enough for me to track my small progress. So I found smaller KPIs that work. And then I also realized I suffer from the problem of achievements don't look like achievements because they're I need to get them done, when in reality it's you did what? Wow, that's big. And you're going, no, it was just the next step. And if you think of it as just the next step, yes, you're making progress, but you don't realize how many next steps you've completed.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
So the other uh, thought I had way back when, so there is a story about a chessboard that uh, I believe is fictional. So it's not historical. It's a story. I just have to add that disclaimer. Where a kid made a chessboard, went to a king and showed him a couple games that he can play on it, and the king goes, "Wow, what is the value of this board?" He goes, "I would like 1 grain of rice for the first square, 2 grains of rice for the next square, 4 for the next, and keep going." And the king goes, "Oh yeah, 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 that's easy." And by the time you get to the last square, you have a couple 100 pounds of rice. Hey, Mitch from the future here. So I was off a little bit with the rice. It's not just a couple 100 pounds of rice. It's actually closer to 1 trillion pounds of rice. So just a little off. And to make that a little bit more of a digestible number, if you take those large container ships that transport freight across the ocean, it's actually, you need 1 million of those to transport all the rice. So just a little off. Here's actually the full weight of the the rice. And we'll get back to the rest of the podcast now. And it's just one of those that you think 1 grain of rice, that's not going to hurt. 4 grains of rice, that's not going to hurt. But when you keep doubling, which I don't have the math on hand, you get to these very large numbers very quickly, to the point where you're going, how did this compound? And then at the same time, kind of like what you're talking about, where you just keep making, you make one step, one progress, and then you make a jump. And I was actually talking to one of my mentors that it comes down to, yes, you might be going slow now, but as you start building momentum and as you can keep that momentum, you're able to start doing bigger and bigger steps. But as soon as you let your momentum slow down, you start getting smaller and smaller steps, which is where you always need to be contributing to your momentum.
I love that. Yep. I watched too many reality TV shows over the weekend, and they say, "I love that for you." They also say "like" a lot, and so when
Like
I just
this, like that.
like every other word, like they're saying "like" just because it's even more than like a comma, like thought, even worse than like an So I was worried that it was going to slip into my vernacular. And then I just heard myself, I love that. That was something they said a lot also. Was, I love that. But they would usually say,
The
I love
influence
that
of
for you.
culture.
What?
The influence of culture.
Culture? Culture, that's not necessarily the word I would use. Pop
It's
culture.
yeah, there's subsects and then there's adjacent concepts, but it is a form of culture that you are in a subset that then it enters your vocabulary, then you carry it to another subsect, and therefore you get Gen Z speak.
Ah, got you. Literally. See what I just did there? Because literally doesn't actually, literally does not apply to everything literally, but literally is one of those words that is literally overused. Literally.
Literally.
Literally. What's an overused word that drives you nuts?
I think of one, but that's a Gen Z thing, and I don't want to get in trouble with Gen Z.
What is it?
Uh, Bet.
Bet? Bet?
Yep.
Just like you bet?
That's how the rest of us would say it, but they just drop the U, and anything that is agreeable is a bet.
Interesting. Maybe I'm not hanging out with the right people. I don't think I've heard that. I hear fire a lot. I hear cinema a lot. That is so cinema.
That's the first time I've heard that.
Really? You need to watch more
Hmm.
Survivor then, because
Ah.
Riz God says it all the time on Survivor. Yeah, he says, that's so cinema. Do you say fire? Like, that's
Not in the way
hot?
that a lot of other people use it, because
Nowadays, instead of saying, that's hot, they say, that's fire. Does that make you feel old?
yeah, which at the same time going, I'm not that far away, but at the same time going, I think back to the words that I used growing up. I'm going, I can only think of one that I was corrected on, but it never went away.
I last when was it? I don't know. A recent Friday. See, I'm so old I can't even remember. A recent Friday, I said to my much younger coworker, because we were talking about TV shows, and I said, "Oh, there's this TV show that I think you'd like." And I was describing it, and I said, "Now it's a little campy, but I think it's pretty good." And she started to laugh, and she kind of gave me a side eye. And I said, "What?" And she said, "Campy?" And I said, "Now come on, surely you've heard of the word campy." And she laughed, and I said, "Campy, like goofy or silly." And so is that not a word people use anymore? Campy?
No, just like pining doesn't really exist anymore.
Pining. Really? But you know what it is?
Yeah, I know what it is. You
Because you
pine
just
for
said it.
someone or you pine for something.
Yeah. So if you know what it is, doesn't that mean somebody is still using it?
Yeah. There are a lot of random words that I know that people go, that's not a word. I'm going, look it up.
Yeah, but you have a pretty big vocabulary. You know a lot of words. But I'm
Yeah,
talking
that's
about
actually,
slang. I'm not even. But is campy a slang word or is campy a word? Guess what? Asking our friend.
well, there are words that became slang because they shifted definitions, such as Nimrod, which Looney Tunes flipped that one because Nimrod used to be a great hunter. And Bugs Bunny called Elmer Fudd Nimrod because just like, hey, Einstein, that's a good answer. It's the
Oh,
opposite of what you're saying.
interesting. I'm typing in Nimrod. A skillful hunter, a foolish or inept person. Now, see, this is when words get interesting, when they can like mean the opposite. That's an interesting list of words, because Nimrod says either a skillful hunter or a foolish, inept person. So, can you be both at the same time? Maybe. When I asked Google to define campy, the first thing it came up with was another word for camp. That's not what I meant. But if you scroll down, it says something that has a wacky appeal. That's how I meant it. A wacky, like how I say that, a wacky appeal. Campy.
I
Go
actually
ahead.
saw
Give me another
a
word.
video that had a list of other words that have flipped meaning or shifted. Because silly, it used to be God blessed,
What?
but silly does not mean that anymore.
So, okay. Define silly.
You might have to pull up the history of silly.
Okay. Define history of silly. Evolving from a positive spiritual term meaning blessed.
Yep. Nice is also one that's got flipped. I don't remember the original meaning, but it was the opposite of nice.
So in the 1100s, it meant blessed or happy. I'm talking about silly. Happy, fortunate, prosperous. And then in the late 1200s, shifted to mean innocent or harmless, then to pitiable or weak. And then in the 1400s, it meant feeble in mind, silly little mouse. And then 1600s, it developed into lacking reason. So it says, why the change? The word's evolution is a classic example of semantic narrowing and, oh, I don't know how to say this word, pejoration, pejoration? How do you say that? Where terms for innocent or simple often turn into credulous and finally foolish over time. Huh. I'm going to ask Google how to say this word. Do you know how to say it?
I want to say pudgeration, but at the same time, I'm not good at reverse spelling bee.
Pejoration.
Oh, that's close.
Pejoration. 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 Okay. Um, okay. I have we ever talked about antonyms?
Possibly.
Not no. I didn't mean that. Antonym is an opposite. Never mind.
You know,
That's not what I meant.
synonyms, or there's
Yeah.
another ims that's in between.
What is
Contronyms.
contronym?
Yes, we
Contronym.
briefly talked about contronyms, and we have a blog post about contronyms.
Okay, I was going to say, haven't we? I think we've talked about contronyms because those are fascinating words. But we already talked about that. What else you want to talk about? What else you got?
Well, so kind of going back to where you said I have a plethora of esoteric words in my head,
Huh?
or a large variety of unique words. Um, so one thing I was talking to my therapist probably a month ago, and she said I have a basically a strong desire to use the correct word to describe things. And I know it's semantics, but as you get into how different words are used and evolved, you understand the more appropriate use. Because, like, one example is happy, glad, um, joysome, and I'm trying to think of another one that's adjacent.
Well, to your
We'll go with
point,
those three.
Brene Brown is the one who said that if you can properly name the emotion, then you will get better at expressing and defining your own emotions. But if you can't even name it precisely, then it's harder for you to work through it.
Yeah.
So I think it's good that you want to be precise in your language.
Because that actually reminds me. Because one of the fun things that I do with my therapist is we have a word of the week: anxiously optimistic trepidation, which is a huge contradiction.
Okay,
But
and also that's more than one word.
yeah, but that's kind of the joke is sometimes it's a one word to describe the week. Sometimes it's a conglomerate of
So a couple of adjectives in
antagonistic
there.
words. Yeah,
Okay.
but yeah, it's just one of those that because like taking that one where it's a I don't remember what I just said, but
Anxiously
it
optimistic trepidation.
yeah, and it's one of those that why, but it's one of those that as you think through that phrase, it's why use those words because it's anxious, you're uneasy about something. Optimistic, you're seeing the future in a joyful light. Trepidation is the fear that something bad's going to happen. And so if you put all three of those words together, it's just one anxious mess. But you're hopeful and you're fearful all at the same time.
Okay. Yeah. Sometimes we're just a big muddy mess, aren't we?
Yeah, and so it's one of those things that, yes, I have a little too much fun mixing unusual words together, but it kind of like what you're saying is if you can name something correctly, um, then it has meaning. And there are m- lawyers love words because they can use very specific word that is you may use or you may utilize something. Yes, they're the same, but they're completely different depending on what you're talking about. And the one subtle difference is the difference in an entire contract.
I agree.
But yeah, it's just all these fun little things that if you can use the word correctly and use it appropriately, you are able to describe something in more color than most Americans can,
Yeah.
or most
And I
people, I should
mean,
say.
and it's a matter of efficiency too. You could say Mitchell walked across the floor with heavy footsteps, or you could say Mitchell stomped.
Or sauntered heavily.
Take out the ly words and just pick a more precise verb.
hmm But yeah, there's so many different ways that you can describe an action that has various different colors to it. And you can have optimistic words to describe something, you can have pessimistic words, or you can have neutral words. And they are all used to convey a meaning, and it's really what meaning are you conveying? Because like the casual greeting of "How are you?" There is "I'm fine and dandy," "I'm good," "I'm okay," "I'm making do," and they are all answering the question, and most people ignore the answer. And all of the things I just said mean very different things.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. What else you got?
I think that's it for this one. You got anything else?
No, I'm good. I've got words swirling around in my head now. Antonyms, synonyms, contronyms, all sort adjectives, adverbs. They're all swirling around in my head now. But nobody's
Well,
coming
I
to
think
save me, so I might as well be the heroine of my own story and save myself.
way to go. Well, that's another episode of What Else You Got with Mitch and Margot. Like, comment, subscribe, share, bookmark, leave your entertaining comments in the comment section. And we will see you guys next time on the next episode of What Else You Got with Mitch and Margot.